When I picked up the phone to ask my son Alex when his wedding would be, my daughter-in-law Sophia looked me right in the eye and said with a chilling smile, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. Special people. I, who for 3 years had paid their monthly rent of $500, bought every piece of furniture in their house, and filled their refrigerator when they had nothing to eat, I was not a special person. I stood there in the living room of my own house, holding the phone as if it weighed 1,000 pounds, watching my son avoid my gaze while Sophia made herself comfortable on the sofa I had bought for them. The pale blue dress I had picked out for her wedding hung uselessly in my closet, along with the new shoes and the illusion of being part of the most important day of my only son's life. I had spent $200 on that dress, thinking about how nice I would look in Alex's wedding photos in which I would never appear. For weeks, I had planned every detail. I had put money aside to give them $1,000 as a wedding gift. I had called my sister Clara in New York to tell her the good news. I had cleaned my house from top to bottom, thinking they might come celebrate with me after the ceremony. All of that collapsed in a second with those 4 poisoned words, "Only special people." Alex finally lifted his gaze and said in a rehearsed-sounding voice, "Mom, it was an intimate thing, very small, just the 2 of us and the witnesses." But I knew it was a lie. I saw the photos on social media. I saw Sophia's parents proudly posing next to the bride and groom. I saw her siblings toasting with champagne. I saw Sophia's white dress, which I had helped finance with the $800 I had given her last month for her personal expenses. I saw everything I wasn't supposed to see. A week later, exactly 7 days after that humiliation, Sophia called me with a completely different voice. She was no longer the confident woman who had excluded me from her wedding. Now she sounded desperate, almost pleading. "Evelyn, the rent is overdue. The landlord is pressuring us and says if we don't pay this week, he'll kick us out. You forgot to make the transfer." Her voice trembled slightly, as if the world were ending. I was silent for a few seconds, remembering all the times I had run to the bank to make that transfer. All the times I had canceled my own plans to make sure they had a roof over their heads. All the times I had eaten beans and rice so I could give them money for their desires. And now, after they had excluded me from the most important moment of their lives, they had the audacity to call me as if nothing had happened. "Sophia," I said, with a calm that surprised even me, "didn't I warn you that I only help special people?" The silence on the other end of the line was so deep that I could hear my own heart beating. For the first time in years, it was not I who was trembling, but her. "Evelyn, I don't understand," she stammered. "We were always special to you. You're like a second mom to me." Lies, all lies, wrapped in that sweet voice she only used when she needed something. The same voice she had used to ask me for money for the wedding dress, for the honeymoon, for the rings, which I had helped finance without knowing I would never see the ceremony where they were exchanged. For so many years, I had this constant feeling of walking on eggshells, weighing every word, every gesture, every gift, hoping to get a crumb of affection from my own son. I was the perfect mother, the obliging mother-in-law, the silent provider, who never protested when they treated me like I was invisible. But that phrase, "only special people," awakened something in me that had been dormant for far too long. I had calculated in my head how much money I had spent on them in those 3 years. Between rent, food, gifts, emergencies, and whims, it was over $20,000. $20,000 I had taken from my retirement, from my savings, from the money my late husband had left, so I could live my last years in peace. And what was all that for? To be treated like a stranger on my own son's wedding day? That night, after I hung up, I sat on my bed and cried. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, of accumulated frustration, of years of silently endured humiliation. I cried for all the times they made me feel that my love was a burden, my presence a hindrance, my money the only thing I had to offer. I cried for the foolish mother I had been, for the woman who had lost herself trying to be indispensable to those who considered her dispensable. When I woke up the next morning, something inside me had changed. It was not just the pain of betrayal. It was something deeper, colder. I stood up and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The same tired eyes as always, the same wrinkles that told stories of years of giving love without getting it back. But there was something else in my gaze, a hardness I didn't recognize, a determination that had been buried under years of compliance. I went to the kitchen and made coffee, as I had trusted them, because I thought they would one day take care of me, just as I had taken care of them. I took a deep breath before opening the door. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. I opened the door to my house and saw a scene I will never forget. Alex was sitting on my sofa with his head in his hands. Sophia was pacing back and forth like a caged animal, and an older man I didn't know was going through papers on my dining table. My papers, my personal documents. "What is happening here?" I asked in a voice that sounded louder than I expected. All three of them looked at me as if I were the intruder in my own house. Sophia was the first to speak, and her voice had that desperate urgency I had already heard on the phone. "Evelyn, thank God you're here. We need to talk. Mr. Donovan is from the law firm we consulted about your situation." "My situation?" The question came out of my mouth with a calm that surprised me. "What situation? I'm doing perfectly fine." Alex finally lifted his head and looked at me with those eyes that once belonged to an innocent child and now only reflected financial panic. "Mom, we went to the bank and they told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Thompson explained that you also blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you did that." Mr. Donovan, a man in his 50s in a gray suit and a smile that didn't inspire confidence, approached me with an outstretched hand. "Mrs. Harper, I am Dr. Donovan, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and have asked me to assess the situation." I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I went directly to my dining table and collected all my documents that he had been reviewing without my permission. "These are my private papers. You have no right to look at them without my consent." "Mom," Alex interjected with that condescending voice he had perfected in recent years, "we're worried about you. Your behavior has been very strange lately. First, you financially cut us off without an explanation. Then, you don't answer our calls. We think you might need professional help." Sophia approached and tried to take my hand with that fake tenderness she reserved for moments when she needed something. "Evelyn, honey, we know you're under a lot of stress. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you think. At your age, episodes of confusion are normal." The word confusion echoed in my head like an alarm bell. Now I understood why they had brought the lawyer. It wasn't about helping me. It was about declaring me mentally incompetent and taking control of my finances. The same woman who had told me they only invited special people to their wedding was now treating me like a senile old lady. "I am not confused," I said with a firmness that silenced everyone. "I am clearer than I have been in years, and you are going to leave my house right now." Mr. Donovan interjected with that professional voice lawyers use when they want to sound reasonable. "Mrs. Harper, I understand you feel overwhelmed, but your children have a right to intervene if they believe your ability to make financial decisions is impaired. They have documented several concerning behaviors." Concerning behaviors? The laugh that came from my throat was hoarse, almost cruel. Like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me? Deciding to no longer finance the lives of two adults who treat me like trash? Sophia jumped up as if I had slapped her. "We never treated you badly. You are part of our family. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We are just speeding up the process." There was the naked, unvarnished truth. Everything I had would one day belong to them. In their minds, I was already dead, and they were just collecting their inheritance in advance. It didn't matter if I had 70 years or 70 days left. To them, I was just an ATM with legs that had become problematic. Out, I said, pointing to the door. All three of you get out of my house. Alex stood up with that angry childlike face he made when he didn't get his way. Mom, we can't just leave. We have obligations. The rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed for. You can't just cut us off from one day to the next. I can't? My voice rose for the first time in the entire conversation. Who says I can't? For years, I have paid rent that wasn't even in my name. I filled a refrigerator in a house where I was not welcome. I financed a life that clearly had no place for me. Mr. Donovan took a folder from his briefcase and placed it on my table. Mrs. Harper, we have prepared some documents that could facilitate this transition. A power of attorney that would allow Alex and Sophia to manage your finances more efficiently. This would just be temporary until you feel better. I took the folder and, without even opening it, threw it directly into the trash can. The only transition that is going to happen here is yours. Sophia started to cry, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of frustration, of contained rage. You can't do this to us, Evelyn. We were counting on you. We made plans based on your support. We bought things. We took on financial obligations because we knew we could count on you. Obligations based on my money, I replied. My next stop was the hardware store. The owner, Mr. Jenkins, had known me for years because I was always buying things to fix Alex and Sophia's apartment. This time was different. Mrs. Harper, what brings you here today? Another emergency with your son? He asked with the familiarity of a person who had silently witnessed my wasted generosity. No, Mr. Jenkins, this time it's for my own house. I need to change all the locks, and I want them to be of the best quality. He looked at me surprised, but asked no questions. While I was choosing the locks, his son Ryan, who installed security systems, came by. It was Providence in action. Ryan, I told him, I also need to install surveillance cameras, the complete system. The price is not an issue. While they were preparing everything for the installation the next day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Sophia calling from someone else's phone because I had blocked her number after the previous day's confrontation. Evelyn, it's Sophia. Please don't hang up. We need to talk like civilized adults. Speak, I said dryly. Listen, I understand you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. Alex and I have talked about it, and we want to make it up to you. How about we have a special dinner to celebrate our wedding with you? We can do it at your house, cook together like we used to. The manipulation in her words was so obvious that I almost had to laugh. Sophia, how much rent do you owe exactly? The silence on the other end confirmed that I had hit a nerve. Well, it's 2 months, $1,000 total. But I'm not just calling for that, Evelyn. We really miss you in our lives. Do you miss me or my money? I asked directly. Both, she replied with a surprising honesty. Evelyn, I won't lie to you. Yes, we need your financial help, but we love you too. You're important to us. If I'm so important, I said, why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Why am I not important enough to get a call that doesn't ask for money? When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was doing? Another silence. We both knew the answer. Never. Sophia, I'm only going to explain this to you once. For 3 years, you have treated me like an ATM with feelings. You used me, you ignored me, you humiliated me, and finally, you insulted me in the worst possible way. Now that the money is running out, you suddenly discover you love me. Evelyn, please, I cut her off. There is no please. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't special enough to be at your wedding. Now I'm making mine. I hung up and turned the phone off completely. I didn't want any more interruptions on my day of liberation. That afternoon, I went to the beauty salon I hadn't been to in over a year. I always canceled my appointments because Alex or Sophia needed something urgent, or because the money I had set aside for myself became an emergency for them. Mrs. Harper, my favorite hairstylist, Lisa, called out, "What a surprise! I thought you had forgotten us." I didn't forget you, Lisa. I just forgot that I also deserve to be pampered. I treated myself to the full treatment: cut, color, manicure, pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without feeling guilty. While Lisa worked on my hair, she told me about her life, her children, her dreams. It was refreshing to have a conversation that didn't revolve around Alex and Sophia's needs. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Harper," she said when she was done. "But more than that, you look free. Did something good happen?" "Yes, Lisa, I finally learned to say no." When I got home that afternoon, there was a car in front of my door that I didn't recognize. My heart raced for a moment, thinking Alex and Sophia might have come back with reinforcements, but as I got closer, I saw an older woman sitting on the steps of my porch. "Mrs. Harper?" she asked as I got out of the car. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Margaret Lane. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but we've never had a chance to talk. Yesterday, I heard very loud voices in your house, and I got worried. Is everything okay?" Her sincere concern touched me deeply. Here was a stranger who showed more interest in my well-being than my own son. "Come in, Mrs. Lane. I'll make you a coffee, and I'll tell you a story you won't believe." While I was making coffee, I told her the whole situation. Margaret listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. And when I finished my story, her eyes were filled with tears. "Mrs. Harper," she said, "you did the right thing. I went through something similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I also thought it was my duty to finance her adult life. I also believed they wouldn't love me if I didn't give them money. What happened? I cut off the money when I realized they only called me when they needed something. At first, it was terrible. They threatened me, emotionally blackmailed me, tried to make me feel guilty. But after 6 months, my daughter called to genuinely apologize. Now we have a real relationship based on love, not on money." Her words gave me hope and confirmed that I had made the right decision. "Do you think Alex and Sophia will understand one day?" "Maybe yes, maybe no," she answered honestly. "But that's no longer your responsibility, Mrs. Harper. Your responsibility now is risking family relationships, spending money on lawyers and doctors, destroying their own reputation, all to get access to your bank account again." Her words made me think. Alex and Sophia had completely revealed their true nature. There was no going back. There was no possibility of a genuine reconciliation. To them, I had never been a mother or a respected mother-in-law. I had always just been money on legs. This revelation, although painful, was also liberating. I no longer had to wonder if I was making the right decision. I no longer had to feel guilty for protecting myself. They had proven for themselves that my emotional and physical well-being was less important to them than my money. That evening, Margaret came to visit with a surprise. She had invited her friends from the garden club to meet me. "Evelyn," she introduced me, "these are my friends Lisa, who you already know from the salon, Elena, Sophia, and Beatrice. We have all been through similar situations with abusive family members." We spent the evening sharing stories. Elena had had to set boundaries with a brother who constantly asked her for money. Sophia had cut off her relationship with a daughter who only visited when she needed money. Beatrice had had to change her will after she found out her grandchildren considered her their retirement plan. What hurts me the most, I confessed, is not losing the money I gave them, but realizing that I never had the love I thought I had. "Evelyn," Beatrice said with the wisdom of her 80 years, "true love cannot be bought or sold. If you had to pay for it, it was never real." Her words were balm for my wounded soul. She was right. I had bought attention, not love. I had financed an illusion. "You know what I've discovered?" I said to my new friends. "That loneliness surrounded by people who don't love you is worse than being lonely on your own. At least now, when I am alone, I am in good company." Everyone laughed, and we toasted to our newfound wisdom. That night, after my new friends had left, I sat in my garden thinking. The stars shone brighter than ever, or perhaps I was seeing them with clearer eyes. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely alone financially. I had no dependents, no financial obligations to anyone but myself. And instead of scaring me, this reality excited me. I could travel when I wanted. I could remodel my house. I could buy myself nice clothes. I could donate to charities that were important to me. I could invest in my own future instead of financing the present of ungrateful people. Freedom tasted like hope, and for the first time in years, I wanted to plan my future. A month after the social worker's visit, I thought I had finally won the war. I had settled into a beautiful routine. I calmly had breakfast and read the newspaper. I tended to my garden, had lunch with Margaret or one of my new friends. And in the afternoons, I devoted myself to activities I had given up for years. I had started painting again, something I was passionate about before I became Alex and Sophia's personal financer. But on a Thursday morning, while I was painting flowers on my new easel, Mr. Larson came to my house with a grim expression that made my blood run cold. "Evelyn, we need to talk. Alex and Sophia have filed a formal lawsuit for mental incompetence in family court. They are requesting to have a legal guardian assigned to you." The words fell on me like stones. I knew it was a possibility, but hearing it out loud made it terrifyingly real. Does that mean they can take control of my money? If a judge determines that you are unable to manage your affairs, yes, he could place Alex as your legal guardian, which would give him full control over your finances. I sat down heavily on my sofa, feeling the weight of the deepest betrayal I had experienced in my life. My own son was trying to legally declare me incompetent to steal my money. Mr. Larson, what evidence could they have? You yourself have seen that I am completely competent. They have statements from 3 witnesses who claim you have behaved erratically. They also submitted unpaid doctor's bills that you supposedly didn't pay and medications that you supposedly hoarded without taking them. But that's a lie. I don't have any outstanding doctor's bills or hoarded medications. I know, Evelyn, but they have fabricated convincing evidence. They also have the statement from Dr. Hayes, who states that you refuse to cooperate with a psychiatric evaluation, which they interpret as proof of mental decline. The manipulation was diabolical. They had turned my refusal to undergo an unnecessary exam into proof of a mental illness. They had used my instinct to protect myself from them as proof that I needed protection. Who are the 3 witnesses? Mr. Larson looked through his documents. Sophia, of course, a neighbor named Mr. Ellis, and someone who claims to be your pharmacist, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Ellis was the neighbor across the street, an unpleasant man who had always had problems with me because my friend sometimes parked in front of his house. Mr. Brooks was indeed my pharmacist, but I didn't understand what he could have against. Lisa replied, "At least now you know exactly who they are, and you can act accordingly." That night, for the first time since this nightmare began, I really cried. Not out of sadness, but out of grief. I said my final goodbye to the son I thought I had, to the dream of a loving family, to the illusion that unconditional love was reciprocated. But something new also emerged within me, an iron determination not to let myself be stripped not only of my money, but also of my dignity and my freedom. The war had officially begun, but I was ready to fight. The trial came 3 weeks later. I woke up early, put on my best black suit, and looked at myself in the mirror with a determination I had never felt before. Today, not only my mental capacity would be judged, my dignity as a person, my right to live free from abuse, my value beyond my bank account would be judged. Mr. Larson came at 7 in the morning to go over our strategy one last time. "Evelyn, remember, the burden of proof is on them. They have to prove that you are incompetent. We just have to show that you are not." And what if the judge is already biased? Judge Reynolds has a reputation for being fair. I researched his past cases, and he doesn't automatically favor families. He is dedicated to protecting the rights of the elderly. We arrived at the courthouse at 9 in the morning. In the hallway, I saw Alex in a new suit that he probably bought for the occasion, and Sophia dressed in black as if she were at a funeral. Maybe it was one, the funeral of our family relationship. When our eyes met, Alex avoided my gaze, but Sophia held my gaze with a coldness that confirmed that for her, this was just a business transaction. Their lawyer was an older, elegant man with the kind of confidence that comes from winning similar cases before. When he began his opening statement, his strategy was clear: to portray me as a confused old woman who had been manipulated by strangers to alienate me from my loving family. "Your Honor," he said in a solemn voice, "Mrs. Evelyn Harper has shown a clear mental decline in recent months. She has cut off all financial support for her family without a rational explanation. She has installed unnecessary security systems due to paranoia and has isolated herself from her loved ones under the influence of neighbors and lawyers who are obviously taking advantage of her vulnerable situation." Every word had been carefully chosen to make my self-empowerment sound like dementia and my freedom sound like external manipulation. Then they called their witnesses. Sophia was the first to testify, and her performance was Oscar-worthy. She cried as she described how I had completely changed, how I had become hostile and paranoid, how I had isolated myself from the family that loved me. "Your Honor," she said in a trembling voice, "Evelyn has always been like a second mom to me. Seeing her mental decline has been devastating. We just want to help her get the care she needs." Lies wrapped in convincing tears. When Mr. Larson cross-examined her, the cracks in her story began to become visible. "Mrs. Harper, can you tell the court when was the last time you called my client without asking for money?" Sophia stammered. "Well, we always talked about many things." "Can you give me a specific date?" "I don't remember exact dates." "Is it true that you and your husband got married without inviting my client?" "It was a very small ceremony." "Is it true that when my client asked about the wedding, you told her that you had only invited special people?" Sophia's face turned red. Those words were taken out of context. "What would be the right context to tell your mother-in-law that she is not a special person?" She couldn't answer convincingly. Alex was next. Seeing him on the witness stand, swearing to tell the truth while preparing to lie about my mental health was one of the most painful moments of my life. This was the boy I had raised alone, the one I had dedicated my entire life to. "My mom has always been very generous with us," he testified, "but lately she has become erratic and irrational. We believe she is being manipulated by people who are taking advantage of her." When Mr. Larson cross-examined him, the mask fell completely. "Mr. Harper, how much money have you received from your mother in the last 3 years?" "I don't know the exact amount." "Does $33,300 sound about right?" "Maybe. She's always been generous." "And how many times have you visited your mother without asking her for money?" The silence was deafening. "Is it true that you and your wife broke into my client's house without permission and checked her private documents?" "We were worried about her." "Is it true that you brought a lawyer to pressure her into signing a power of attorney?" "We wanted to help her manage her finances." "Do you, at 35 years old, need the help of your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent?" Alex couldn't answer with dignity. Mr. Ellis testified about my supposed erratic behaviors, but when Mr. Larson asked him for details, he admitted that he had And in her place, someone has been born who has understood a fundamental truth. True love never has a price, and freedom is never too expensive. My name is Evelyn. I am 72 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person I have to love and protect is myself. If you liked my story, you can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. And you, what would you do in this person's place? I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time.